feel like a best kept secret? Like, you know you're good at what you do, but you couldn't land a client if your life depended on it, and you feel like you're screaming into a void, but no one seems to hear you. Maybe you feel like a hidden expert or an invisible expert, and you know you're here to make an impact, but you just can't seem to get it right. And you're doing all this work, but nothing seems to actually land with the right people. Well, rest assured, we're gonna fix that today. There are really 5 fundamental steps that you need to know in order to take a stranger and turn them into a paying client for your business. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I really wanted to get into detail on this with you without a lot of the guesswork and a lot of probably the unnecessary hard work and content creation that you're currently doing. It doesn't have to be difficult, and you don't have to put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating content. You just need to be super, super strategic and super, super intentional so that you can keep the main thing, which is doing the work that you do best and having the impact that you know you can have. Before we get into those steps and I give you a little preview of what's coming up, be sure to hit that like button so we can reach more people in the algorithm, and be sure to hit subscribe for new videos every single week. This is the place where we teach you how to create a peaceful, profitable, and purposeful online course business. We've been doing it for years, helped thousands of people, and I'm so excited that you're here. Okay, so the 5 things we're gonna get into today for this content plan. Number 1, identify your USP. I'll tell you what that is in just a second if you don't know. Number 2, content scaling funnel. Number 3 content buckets to convert. That's it, just 3. That's the only kinds of content that you really need. 4, easy content creation. Doesn't that sound nice? And then 5, distribute and leverage. Let's do it. Okay, so USP is unique selling proposition. Every business in the world needs to have a USP. But the problem is most people get into business and they think, okay, I'm in this broad category and I just need to work for a really long time in order to be known and seen as the expert. Creating a really strong USP allows you to essentially create your own lane within that broader industry, so you become the go-to expert in what we call a micro niche. So I'm gonna give you a very specific example of this and exactly how to do this in just a second. But before I do, I wanted to mention, this is what we do all day, every day. We've worked with thousands of people all over the world to go from best kept secret to global authority and be able to scale their expertise for more income and impact. And if that's something that you wanna do and you wanna create an online course business, click the link below, just fill out an application, and you can actually speak to a real human on my team so we can support you in best next steps. Okay, so step number 1 to this is called the 0 to hero journey. I've mentioned this before, but it's really important to understand why this creates your unique selling proposition and makes you stand out. So essentially what a 0 to hero story is a transformation that you've been through, or a transformation that you are an expert at or really skilled at creating for your clients or for anyone that you've worked with over the years. So you take people from this 0 state all the way up to this hero state. So there's a next step to this that's really important. Before I share that, I want to use this real world example. So one of our clients, Sean, he's amazing, and he helps nurses pass the NCLEX exam. So that right there is a very specific micro niche, because he could just be in the nurse career growth category, career coaching in general, but instead he's taken it a step further, and it's worked really well for him. So why this is so important and how I'm going to further break it down here is going to illustrate that this can work whether you have an audience of 0 or 100,000. And we have a whole playlist on if you are growing your business from 0, so you can check that out in the description below for more details and steps on that. But just so you know, this does apply. Doesn't matter if you have an audience or not right now. And it allows you to create really powerful and magnetic messaging that attracts the right people into your realm that you can really have a deep impact on. Okay, so prior to Sean discovering his unique selling proposition, he was actually working for free for a very long time, tutoring nursing students to pass this exam because he didn't understand how to really portray the value of what he was doing and his unique selling proposition. So how did he do that? Okay, so the next step from identifying, okay, what's the 0 state and the hero state? And for Sean, he actually had to really figure out a unique approach to taking this exam because he had to pass. When he took the exam the second time, he had to pass. So he figured out this really unique approach and he passed, and organically people were asking him, well, you know, I'm taking the test, any advice or tips you have for me? And he's like, totally. Like, I approached this with a really strategic mindset. I could help you. Started to get some proof, started to get all these people to pass the exam and start to get notoriety around it, but he just didn't know how to sell that. So first step is, what's your 0 to hero story? How can you help people? How have you helped people? What's the impact that you're gonna create? And what's that transformation? From there, you wanna get really, really specific on who exactly you're speaking to. So Sean knew, and this comes from the 0 state, you have to figure out who is this person right here. because we need to know who they are at their zero state in order to get them to the hero state, and in order to speak to them in a way and create content and messaging that actually resonates with them enough that they want to invest in you and your method and program to become the hero state. So for him, he knew that it was aspiring nurses who needed to pass this exam. So this is the hero state. Pass the exam, become a nurse. Now the next piece of this, and this is what we call your 3 factors of your ideal client. So we know it's one specific ideal client, aspiring nurses, and we have to know the tipping point. So for Sean, he knew, okay, they've taken test once, have to pass. So this is the tipping point where he needs to meet that person, that stranger, and say, I have what you need in order to achieve that hero state, because that's exactly what I do. And the final piece is, what's the outcome that they're after? And the outcome that they're after is, yes, passing the exam, but more than that, it's to become a licensed nurse so they can do the work that they are dedicating their life to. So from there, that turns into what we call your transformation statement, which is your USP. And this is the foundation and the base of anything you're ever gonna do in terms of creating content. So it creates this really clear, intentional strategy. So you're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall, creating content for everyone. You know exactly who you're speaking to, so it requires less content and more return on that content and more benefit from that content. So the transformation statement from all of this information, from Sean's story and his own experience and the people that he supported prior to creating his program, and his 3 key factors becomes, I help repeat test taker nurses go from lost to licensed so that they can live their dream, proudly wear those big credentials on their badges, and get well paid for their hard-earned education. Now this brings us to step number 2, the content scaling funnel. This is so important to understand if you really do want to be more efficient with your time and your energy. So a content scaling funnel, in my opinion, looks like this. And you have your top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. They all serve different purposes. And if you really want to convert people into paying clients and have that impact on them, you need to really focus on this area, because the top 2 serve a purpose of really vanity growth and audience growth, which can come into play. But when you're just trying to convert clients and when you feel like your content isn't landing with the right people, it means you're not living in this area right here. So you always want to take this from your unique selling proposition. What is the end goal that you're working towards? The end goal that you're working towards is to enroll people into your program so that you can serve them at the highest level and create that transformation for them. When that's the case, and when you know what your unique selling proposition is, you want to only create content that directly speaks to your hottest leads. That means it's a match for those 3 factors. Aspiring nurses, they've taken the test once, they have to pass the second time. And the final part of that is that they become licensed and they can actually do the work that they know they're meant to do. So every piece of content needs to speak to that person and those 3 factors. Now here's the tricky part about this and what really messes with people's heads and leads to a lot of frustration. This content down here, so the bottom of the funnel, is the hot lead part of the funnel, because this is going to be your most targeted audience actually paying attention to this. Having said that, it's also going to be the smallest and most likely the least engaged. So this is not going to lead to likes, comments, shares, virality, because it's a very specific audience. So you have to know and appreciate the KPIs, the key performance indicators of this kind of content. And it's not going to be virality. It's not going to be everybody sees this content and loves it and I'm going insta famous. No, my friend, you don't need that. And when you do the math and you reverse engineer the numbers of how many clients you actually need, you don't need thousands of people. You need the right people to pay attention to this content. So middle of the funnel speaks to that ideal client, just a step behind that tipping point. So they're just like on the edge. They maybe have not even taken the exam once yet, and they're just trying to learn how to pass the exam. So you could talk about passing the exam, that's gonna be helpful to them, but they're not at the right place to actually invest. So this is gonna create a little more friction from that stranger turning into a client, because they're just not at the right place. Doesn't mean you can't create that content, but just know what to expect. It's gonna get engagement, it's gonna get retention, but it's probably not gonna convert the same way that the bottom of the funnel does. Now, the top of the funnel content is for big time newbies. So this would be content in Sean's case, like, so you're thinking about becoming a nurse. Here are 10 steps you need to know before you can become the nurse. And one of those steps would be, you have to pass this exam. So this is like newbie, beginner, and this content is most likely to go viral. But viral does not turn into conversions all the time. And most of the time it doesn't, because you don't have control over this audience. This is beginner, entry-level content. So you can see the friction between this top of the funnel content that tends to get the most engagement, virality, views, etc., there's a lot of friction and steps before they become this client. So if you want to focus on conversions in your content plan, focus on only speaking to your hottest leads, those 3 factors, and bottom of the funnel content, and embrace and love that it's maybe not going viral and it's maybe not getting a ton of vanity metrics, but it's converting into clients that you can have the deepest impact on and serve at the highest level. Now, regardless of what level you're speaking to, there's a specific formula that I mentioned a few videos ago where if you use this, you're gonna really hit on the right people with your content. And it's the formula for creating really magnetic content. So it goes value. So it has to be valuable content, helpful content, plus based on your experience level. So for Sean, his experience level is he's passed that exam successfully. That's all he needs to know. So anyone who is in his program just hasn't passed that exam yet. His experience level is higher than theirs, and he has something that they need to get to that outcome. Experience, which gives you a level of empathy, which is so important, plus 3 factors. So you need to be valuable in your content based on your unique experience and experience level, so you can relate to these people and speak to those 3 specific factors of your ideal client, which we just discussed. And here's the amazing thing about this. It doesn't have to be pretty content. It doesn't have to be perfect content. You don't have to spend a ton of time on it. It just has to be highly relevant to those folks. That's what makes it convert. I've talked about this before, but some of my best converting content is the ugliest content I've created. It's about the value and the experience, not the prettiness of it. And the easiest way to think about these 3 pieces and really look at your own content and see where it's falling and who you're speaking to, because if you're speaking to a beginner, it's gonna take a long time to get that person to become a client. So I look at it as like viral, depth, because this is really nurturing them into becoming a client. And then this tends to be evergreen content. So really helpful, really specific, speaking directly to your hot lead, and content that could be relevant to that person for the rest of time. So it can just be reused and revisited forever and ever and ever. Now, there are really only 3 buckets of content that you really need to know, and this is a little bit different than what I was just talking about with the scaling funnel, because those are really levels. When you're thinking about creating content, it's 3 buckets of content that convert best and work best to build your authority and position yourself as an expert. So it comes down to story. I'm gonna put this again here because I think the biggest key to positioning yourself as an expert is to understand and have a high level of empathy for where your client is at in their 0 state. So sharing story content about your own journey or how you've helped others achieve the hero outcome and where you were at the 0 state or where your clients were at the 0 state allows people to relate to you and really make them feel like you are the most trusted person that they can work with. So creating empathy. The next piece is obviously value, and then the next piece is proof. So what that means is you're gonna essentially find categories and types of content you can create for each of these. So story is simply sharing your entire story or parts of your story on a platform that feels most natural to you, whether that's video, written, and where your audience would be hanging out the most. You can also share this in really like-minded communities. So if there was a community full of aspiring nurses, Sean's sharing his story of how he had to really buckle down and he had to pass the test the second time is super inspiring to people and something that they would really relate to in that group. So story content can be just more from the heart, empathetic, longer, and more in depth. Value-driven content can be things like FAQs. And I'm going to talk about this more in a second, but frequently asked questions, tutorials, tips and tricks, strategies, those kinds of things help people understand why you're good at what you do and why you're an expert. So it positions you as an expert. And then proof content is sharing results. The easiest way to think about this is through fitness. You see people share before and afters all the time. That establishes them as a go-to expert. So what are some of the results you've created for people? It doesn't have to be photos. It could be written. It could be screenshots. It could be whatever shares and shows that you actually know what you're doing. And it could be from your own story as well. You could talk specifically about the results you were able to create for yourself first and foremost, which allows you to then help and teach others. Now, in terms of understanding KPIs for these key performance indicators, story content is always gonna be the most engaged content you probably create because it's so relatable to people. So this, you can really expect, vanity metrics on that. Things like likes, comments, shares. The biggest factor though is qualitative. You really wanna look at, are people really resonating with this? Are they leaving me in-depth comments and feedback and sending me DMs? That means your story is really resonating with the right people. In terms of value content, you want to see things like shares, saves, retention. People are really paying close attention to it and saving it for later. That's important when it comes to FAQs, tutorials, all of those kinds of things. And then proof content, you want to see people saying things like, oh my gosh, that's so inspiring. You want to see them liking it. You want to see that people's eyeballs are on it. They may not be engaging a ton because if somebody's looking for this result and they're at the 0 state, they might feel a little embarrassed. Here's a really interesting thing. Some of my best clients actually never really engaged with my content because they were in their own head and in their own journey and they were like, I just want to get there and I'm at the 0 state and I feel embarrassed. They were watching, they were paying attention, they just weren't necessarily outwardly engaging. So proof might not get the most engagement, but believe me, people are watching. So how do you make it easy to create magnetic content? So one of the easiest things to do is to actually talk to people and interview them and ask them what they're struggling with and ask them what they're trying to achieve and ask them how it feels to be in that 0 state. Do it in just a really conversational way. This is a key part of our method and such a foundational way of why our clients' programs are so impactful because they have so much empathy by the time they create it because they've done that research and they've really listened to what people need, not what they think they need. So that's one key part of it. But the easiest piece is actually to take it from your own journey and that transformation statement and your unique selling proposition that we talked about earlier. So a really easy way to think about this is if you look at Sean's statement that I mentioned earlier, there are keywords that you can pull out of it. And if you look at his 3 factors, there's keywords that you can pull out of it. Things like aspiring nurses. They've taken the test once, NCLEX exam, how to pass the NCLEX exam. They want to get licensed. Those are all key phrases and keywords that his clients are looking for. So what you want to do is when you know your transformation statement and where you're trying to take people to and from, you basically want to pull the key phrases and the key words from your transformation statement and use those as the basis of the pieces of content you're going to create moving forward. Other things that stand out in that statement from Sean is repeat test takers. So speaking directly to those people, using that as a headline. Are you a repeat test taker? Here's how to pass the NCLEX exam the first time. Going from lost to licensed nurse. Becoming a well-paid nurse, using that hard-earned education. Those are all words that I'm just pulling from his statement. So you want to use those key phrases and keywords in your statement for the basis of your content. Now you might be thinking, well, that's going to give away everything that I have in my program. No. Content and free content that you create online is the what? Well, and the program is actually the how. It takes them from 0 to hero. It's the entire transformation that you can't possibly teach in piecemeal pieces online. It's kind of like free content is a puzzle piece. It's one individual puzzle piece of a 1,000-piece puzzle, whereas a program is the entire puzzle with a map, a guide, and a mentor to help you finish the puzzle in an amazing amount of time. That's how you can kind of look at it. So free content is never going to be the thing that creates the deepest impact and the biggest transformation because it just doesn't have all the puzzle pieces in place, but it still is really valuable and helpful. The easiest thing to think about is everything that we just spoke about in terms of the buckets of content and the tactics to use. You can look at everything that's going to go in your program and that maybe you've used or you've helped to teach others to get them from 0 to hero. And those are all potential content topics and content pieces that are super intentional, hyper-focused on your hottest potential leads. And if you want to take this a step further, you can check out this video where I actually broke down the profitable content formula and the magnetic messaging formula with fill in the blanks to create your next piece of content. Now, number 5 is distribute and leverage. Probably one of the biggest missed opportunities there is just because you create one piece of content doesn't mean that it's just dead after that. You want to reuse that content. And remember I said that the bottom of the funnel content, the evergreen content, can be used over and over and over again for the rest of time. I still have videos on this very channel that people watch every single day, new people find every single day because it's timeless. So focusing on timeless content is really beneficial and valuable to your business because it's kind of like these little machines out there just generating new leads and new eyeballs every single day on you as the expert. So the number 1 key is evergreen content. And when I say distribute and leverage, what I mean by that is using this content in a myriad of ways. You can take a video content and cut it into micro pieces of content that you can share on other platforms. You can take that video and you can have it transcribed to create a long form text post that you could share on another platform. So what you want to do is you want to milk every piece of content you have. I like to say juice the lemon. I don't know why I said milk, but juice the lemon. Squeeze every drop at every evergreen piece of content you have and make sure you're distributing it onto the platforms where you know your audience is hanging out. Whether you have an audience or you're able to share in potentially a group or you're able to share on someone else's platform or page or account to get more of those direct and related and targeted eyeballs onto you and your content and what you're an expert at. So don't just make the content, What's your distribution plan? Where's it going? When you create that piece of content, are you sharing it across every platform you can think of? Are you sending it to your client list? Are you sending it to your potential clients? Are you sending it to that person on the street that you met who said that they're really interested in what you're doing? Send it to the right eyeballs, to targeted eyeballs. You don't want just any eyeballs on your content because you want people to engage. You want them to actually pay attention because that makes a big difference in you being seen by more people like that in the algorithm. It triggers the algorithm to go, oh, this is who you want to see your content. Let's find more people like that to serve this to. So distribute it. Have a distribution plan in the first 24 hours to share that piece of content other places and with the right people, and leverage it. Break it into micro pieces of content. Turn a video into a text piece of content. Turn it into a graphic. Turn it into a carousel on Instagram. Turn it into stories. Whatever you gotta do. Just don't put yourself on the hamster wheel to think you have to create more. Use what you have and make the most of it. That makes a massive difference. Whew, I'm sweating. Okay, it's on here and that was a lot. But I hope that was really helpful for you. And if you only focus on this content plan and creating super intentional content, I'm telling you, you're gonna create less content and have more authority and be seen as more of an expert than you already are and attract the right people into your realm to actually convert them into paying clients where you can have the deepest impact on them. If that really resonated with you, please let me know with a like so we can reach more people in the algorithm. And let me know in the comments below what your takeaways were. My love language is comments. I'd love to see what your thoughts were, what landed with you. It really means a lot, so please do so. And how do you turn this into an actual business? Well, this is what we do. So we help people take their unique genius, their unique expertise and skill set and scale it so they can detach their time from income and be able to have limitless impact on the people who need them most. If you want to create your online education business, be sure to click that link below, hit the apply button, and fill out that application so you can speak to a real human on my team and we can support you in doing so. We are very particular in who we work with because we want to make sure that we're at the right place and you're at the right place for us to best support you. So it starts with filling out that application as thoroughly as possible. We have clients who have scaled all the way up to multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in their business. Crazy, but it's totally doable. So you very well could be our next success story. And like I said, I have a playlist below if you're just starting out, just starting from zero, and if you're trying to just learn about this whole online course thing and how it works, be sure to check that out for even more resources and support. I hope this was helpful. I hope it helps you see that you can do this and you can do it in a peaceful, purposeful, and profitable way. I went from completely burnt out, ended up in the hospital at 29, stressed out of my mind, to now having an 8-figure business and being able to support people all over the world. I am living proof of it. We have clients that are living proof of it, and I hope this gives you some hope. All right, thank you so much for watching. Check out the playlist next. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.